Today's video is about Ankur, the Kingdom of the Gods, a tabletop RPG system I would generally describe as being Stargate on steroids. Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Stephen Nonsense. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back. What I do is gaming and geek culture, and while generally I review video games, every once in a while I need a bit of a break, and this is one of those breaks. And whenever I take a break from the video part of games, I go back to the originators, the tabletop. But much like in my channel in general, I don't go for the although I do love D&D, I don't go for the very well-known things. I go for the indies when it comes to tabletop games as well. So today I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Ankur, Kingdom of the Gods. Now, this is for the time being, this is a one book thing. It's pretty thick. I've reviewed a couple of these, only a couple of tabletop RPG systems. I will post my playlist in the card in case you're interested in the other things I did. I generally always first start with the presentation, because in the physical realm that's kind of important, I think. So the book presents itself very well in general. The paper quality is high, the print quality is great, no smudges. Also in terms of the general layout of the book, it's pretty cool. In general, you will find the information that you're looking for where you think it should be. But the idea is, this is a pretty thick book. It has over 300, has 320 something pages of this wider format. So the idea being, this has everything you need, and I believe it kind of answers most, if not all, of the questions that might come up in terms of how does this mechanic work, what happens in this situation. Because this, make no mistake about it, Ankur is definitely a passion project. It's a work of love, because once you dig into the book, the particular setting and all of the world building that makes it into the book and that was created for this setting, it can only come from a place of deep passion and love, both for the game and for this particular idea. So what was it with the setting? Well, why did I say Stargate on steroids? This isn't that much of a spoiler. Stargate, as you know, in Stargate, aliens influence ancient Egyptian civilization. You know, and then stuff happens. There's a couple of series I didn't watch, and you know. Well, what Ankur does is basically it takes most, if not all, of the various let's call them alternative theories of human development, and creates a fantasy version, a fantasy world version of our universe, in which all of those things are kind of really true, but in a different sort of manner. So in this setting, we have Earth and the solar system and everything else, but also there's an ancient alien civilization that has been intertwined with the very old planet Earth. And yeah, so basically they came to Earth because they needed gold, and then they started tinkering with the genetics of the ancient primates so that they can make slaves to get the gold. And then things from that point on cascaded, and there's nowadays, not necessarily nowadays, in the present sort of this world, the Earth, there's several varieties, several different types of species on Earth of humanoids, all of them having different amounts of this alien DNA. So this basically allows the book, allows the system and the setting to kind of fit in the overall archetypes of humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes, orcs or ogre type of stuff, but within this theme and this setting, and making sense. I mean, they're similar to those archetypes, but not exactly they don't necessarily have, aesthetically speaking, they're really not the same. The setting basically allows you to play in a very varied technological setup. So you can have, on the one hand, very primitive type weapons, tools, buildings, that sort of stuff, and on the other hand, the alien technology is highly developed. There's a lot more. Obviously, I'm just generally skimming through the setting. There's a lot of detail put into the world building, which is what I was mentioning earlier. Maybe a bit too much. Now, I'm not saying you can have too much world building. There's really no such thing, but it does matter the way in which you present it. And the thing is, this is why I say this has to be a passion/love project, because basically everything in the book, every specific name, especially title that is created for the book, has a meaning behind it, and that meaning itself probably has a bunch of other references to other in-world things that happen or that exist, which is cool. That's a really solid world building. The only sort of issue I have with how it's presented is that there's no way for you to you basically have to go through all of it in order to get the piece of information that you're looking for. So whenever you come up to a particular item or skill or something like that, you have to go through the name is in the alien language, and then in the earthen type languages, and then why it's called that, and then what it does, and that sort of stuff. I would have basically separated the things into need to know and good to know type of stuff, so that I could basically just focus on what is relevant for mechanical purposes. But otherwise, if you're super interested in digging into a very particular type of setting that kind of blends sci-fi with some sort of fantasy, this is a great example, and also that sets it in on our planet. Although, like I said, things are totally different than this particular timeline that we're in now in our reality. So now the system itself, the system is pretty cut and dry, D12, not too bad. In which a 12 will always be a critical fail and the 1 will always be a success. Although, importantly to mention, not a critical success. That you need to roll exactly what you have to roll in order to get a critical success. In general, the class system, there is a class system in the game which is based around your character being part of a particular caste. This entire civilization, society is a caste-based one. So the castes act like a combination of, I would say, alignment system blended with class skills from a more traditional D&D approach. Basically meaning, once you choose your caste, you can only be you only gain access to a certain number of skills. It has an interesting extra that you can learn very complex skills only if you're part of a particular caste. You'll have access to those complex skills, but all characters have access to the same simple skills. Some of them will learn them from the get-go, but the ones that you don't learn, you can always learn once you start the game through a simple trial and error, which is really nice. I really like that little bit of extra potential of advancing your character without necessarily having to invest your points in the things. There's no, also due to the fact that the caste system is very rigid in terms of the society, there's no multi-classing taking place in Ankur. The general classes are healer, entertainer, soldier, psionicist, scribe, builder, and barbarian. And these in general, you know, they kind of fit the general archetypes of fighter, cleric, bard, etc. But they're all very appropriate to this setting and theme. So you can't multi-class, which can be a bit of a downer. I know some people really love to multi-class. Not a big fan of it in particular, but hey, whatever floats your boat. But what you can do, and what has a specific type of a particularity in this system, is that once your character dies, that's not where it necessarily has to end, because you can play as a ghost. Once you decide not to go for the light, as it were, and keep playing as a ghost, your entire character, granted not your entire character stats don't change, but the skills that you can use are modified, and what you can do with your existence in the game is modified as well. So playing a ghost will basically shift your focus from the physical to the spiritual based abilities and stats, and there's a lot of flexibility there. You can do a lot of things, a lot of weird things as a ghost. For instance, you can project yourself either as a shadow or as an astral aspect, or even as a corporeal aspect, and each of them has its own drawbacks and advantages. You can also possess dead bodies or living bodies. So basically all of the sort of zombies that you'll find in this setting, that's what they'll generally be, ghosts inhabiting dead bodies. And that whole thing, this whole ghost spirit world is very this is the more fantasy part of the game. This is a very present type of thing inside the game. It's reminiscent somewhat to Shadowrun, because in that one you also had the spirit world and you could astral project and that sort of stuff. But in this one, it seems like it's a bit more part of the physical realm. There's much more blending going on there. So much so that there's a mention, like I said, a lot of world building in the book. There's a mention in the book that in some castes, some ziggurats will actually be protected by ghost guardians. So members of the caste who died and decided to stay on as ghosts to protect their knowledge, the things in that particular ziggurat. And dealing with ghosts as a physical being is quite difficult in the game, and in general, one might say. So that right there can gives you just one bit of idea of how this theme and world can really offer a very unique sort of experience. Just imagine playing as a full party of ghosts. That would create a very different type of gaming experience, both from the game creation as well as from the experience type of thing. Because ghosts it's really hard for a ghost to communicate with the living world, and even among each other might be a bit difficult. So that would offer a very interesting type of challenge and an interesting type of experience as well. I only went through the things in general, but that's what the setting is. It does mainly take place on Earth, but Earth here is called Ki or Chi, and it evolved quite differently. It's quite different than you'd think. It was kind of reminiscent to a certain degree of what was done with honor, but whilst in honor our reality actually exists, and this one, no, this is just a completely separate fantasy version of this universe. Basically everything you'll need is in the book. Oh yeah, something that I just forgot to mention is the art. The art in the book is quite spectacular. I was very pleasantly surprised at the very high quality of the in-book art. All of the chapters, there's usually full page art when the chapters begin, and even in general there's the occasional full page or half a page piece of art. Very, in general, very well done. This is the weapons area, and there's a bunch of melee, there's a bunch of primitive ones, and there's also a bunch of not so primitive ones, like all kinds of laser weapons and whatnot. So yeah, the book covers basically anything and everything you would need to know, from, I don't know, poisoning effects to abilities that have to do with you learning a sport, because there's sports in this world, so you could learn a sport, to, I don't know, there is a particular place where there's proverbs. Yeah, so it goes into that sort of depth. Yeah, so if you're interested in in a very particular and specific type of setting that fuses all of these chariot of the gods sort of theories, and blends them and makes them into a cohesive whole that actually makes sense in this fantasy world, definitely check out Ankur, Kingdom of the Gods. I will post a link to the Drive-Thru-RPG version link or something similar in the description. So yeah, if this sounds interesting, check it a bit more. Chris Miller is the guy who made this, and you can kind of find him on Twitter if you have direct questions for him. Or if not, I don't know, ask him in the comments of this video, and we'll see if we can get him to check them out here. I don't know, we'll see about that. Anyway, thank you for watching, be kind, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.